Hi, this is Lane8492. This is the second of two true crime story videos I think today. This one is a case out in Florida that happened in the late 70s. This is the case of spree killer David Leroy Washington, who wound up murdering three people in separate incidents in a crime spree of his. The first one was when the first victim would be of a gay minister named Daniel Pridgen, who apparently made a pass at David Leroy Washington. And of course, David Leroy Washington lured him into the bed, and there, David Leroy Washington fatally shot Daniel Pridgen. And then he went to the home of Katrina Birk, and there he fatally shot her. And then he also then he robbed and shot Frank Meli. All three of this was in the Miami area of South Florida. Apparently, Frank Meli was buried in the backyard of where Washington lived. An investigation by detectives would lead to the arrest of David Leroy Washington and his accomplices. He was eventually found guilty of the three slayings in the Miami-Dade County Courthouse and sentenced to death. This became an appeals process that was filed by David Leroy Washington while he was on death row in Florida. But his sentence was upheld. His conviction and sentence was upheld by the Florida Supreme Court. They appealed it all the way to the SCOTUS, where the SCOTUS declined to intervene on behalf of David Leroy Washington. The only two justices who dissented at the time were Justices Thurgood Marshall and William Brennan. Eventually, Governor Bob Graham of Florida would eventually sign the death warrant for David Leroy Washington, setting his execution for July 13th. And of course, he too declined to intervene. And of course, like they'd still do today, about a week before his execution, David Leroy Washington is taken from his death row cell to the death house at the Florida State Prison, which is in Starke, Florida, about 40 miles west of Jacksonville in Bradford County. And of course, for his last meal, David Leroy Washington ate fried shrimp, fried oysters, French fries, hot rolls, vanilla ice cream, and a glass of lemonade. And usually when they prepare a prisoner for execution, they shave their head completely bald, and they shave the calf of their right leg, because that's what's common in the electric chair. And of course, they also wear the rubber diaper, and I'm not going to go into the reasons why, because people know. And of course, they wear dark blue trousers and a white long-sleeve button-down shirt. And then that's when David Leroy Washington at 7 in the morning takes his last walk down the corridor, and is brought to the execution room. And he was strapped into Florida's electric chair at the Florida State Prison in Starke, Florida. Part of his last words were saying that hopefully that if this is what it takes for his execution to bring closure to the victims' families, then he says, then so be it. But he also, as part of his last words, encouraged the other fellow death row inmates of his, do not give up the fight. Keep fighting your death sentences to the bitter end, even if it doesn't succeed in the legal appeals process. And as a result, on July 13th, 1984, at the age of 35, David Leroy Washington is put to death in Florida's electric chair, nicknamed Old Sparky, at the Florida State Prison in Starke, Florida, in Bradford County, which is where executions are still carried out in the state of Florida. And as I previously mentioned, it's 40 miles west of Jacksonville. Well, hope you enjoy this video and let me know what you think. Thanks.